Welcome to the second in a series of short videos about Boolean. Today's video takes the basics from our first short film and shows you how to apply them to lists of search terms or keywords, and this will allow you to search much more effectively. If you haven't seen the introductory video, please have a look at the description below and you'll find a link to some more information and the other videos. So what we're looking at today is the same topic that is in our other videos, which is teaching and behaviour support for children with autism spectrum disorder. So on the screen here we have two columns that represent some keywords for different things relating to this topic. First one we have relates to autism spectrum disorder, and the second relates to children. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at these and we're going to use the Boolean search terms that we've learned and try to make these lists shorter. Now, it doesn't seem that this is going to be worth a lot of our effort, but actually when you're constructing searches you have to be systematic, and if we were just using these columns you would have to search for autism spectrum disorder and children, autism spectrum disorder and infants, autism spectrum disorder and juveniles, etc, etc, etc. So it would be very time consuming. So what we're going to try and do is get rid of as many keywords as we can, as efficiently as we can, and see if we can make your searches much faster. So first of all, let's have a look at the column on the right, and we're going to deal with this because the words and phrases in it are much simpler. So first thing we notice is that we've got lots and lots of things with the root child. So we've got children, child and childhood, and if this was actually your own list you could probably think of a few more. So the first thing we're going to do is use a truncation. Now, a truncation is done simply by putting an asterisk after the root of a word and getting rid of everything else. So if you use this, so type child followed by an asterisk into a database, this would mean that it will search for child, childhood, children, anything that starts with those 5 letters. And because we can do that, we can actually get rid of those. We no longer need to search for them. So we've gotten rid of some of our searches already. And we can also do that with some of the others on here. We've got infants and juveniles. So why not use truncations on those as well? And also, if we're being very clever, you can stack operators on top of each other. So infants, juvenile, child, children, these all mean essentially the same thing. So why not use an or? We're not actually that fussed about which one of these words, they all mean the same thing as it relates to the topic. And you can also see at the bottom that I've added another Boolean operator. I've added a not. So I've decided, and for your own topics you can decide for your own essay, I've decided that teenagers don't count for my research topic because it specifically mentions children and I think teenagers are too old. So I've made that decision and I'm going to use a not to exclude them from my search. So I think that's all we can do on the column on the right. We've got it down to 2 search terms, which is pretty good. So on the left hand side it's a bit more difficult because autism spectrum disorder and autistic spectrum are both very common phrases to use in relation to this condition. And we want to make sure that we get them in that context. So we want to make sure that the individual words aren't searched for wrongly. For example, we don't want things popping up about the light spectrum and the physics of rainbows. So we want to put those as phrases. So you put quotation marks around the phrase, and that tells the database that you only want it to search for those words when they're together. And you can do the same for autistic spectrum as well. So I think we'll leave the ones at the bottom because autism and autistic are both very general terms, and so you don't want to restrict your searches down too much. But I'm sure there's something we can do for the ones in the middle because they are essentially the same. The only difference is the dots. So why don't we do an or again? Ors are very helpful. So we're going to use an or to look for ASD or A.S.D. Now some databases can see around this. If you put it in without dots it will also search for it with dots, but since we're doing it on here, let's just use it as an example. And I think probably that's all we want to do for that column. So how do you actually put it into a database? Well, we've got another video coming up about that. But if we have two columns of keywords like this, all you need is one more operator, and that will be an AND. So you would search for autism spectrum disorder in quotation marks and infant, juvenile, child, all with or between them, all with a truncation, and probably all in brackets to make sure that they stay together. And then on the end you would put not and teenager, and that will be your first search. For the next search you would search for autistic spectrum in quotation marks and then the second column. And that's all you need to do. I hope this helps. Thank you for watching.